Hi everybody, TJ Mack of Vintage Cards and Nostalgia here. Have you ever noticed how two people can show you the exact same card, but one of them makes it come alive in a way the other never could? It's the same piece of cardboard, the same stats, the same image, yet somehow one presentation sticks with you and the other fades into the background. What's happening here? It's not the card that changes, it's the person behind it. Now think about it for a moment. This just isn't true with sports cards. It happens in every part of life. Two people can say the same thing, but one voice resonates more deeply, more authentically. Whether it's a friend, a mentor, or a fellow collector, something about the way they present the card or their message, it just makes it more meaningful. So the question is, why does this happen? I think it's because when someone shares something they care about deeply, they bring their personal connection with it to the surface. You can just feel their passion, their nostalgia, and their stories. It's as if they embedded a piece of their own experience into that object. And when they hand you that card, they're not just showing you a relic of the past, they're showing you a piece of themselves. I was emailing my friend Gannon, who many of you know from the community through his comments on our videos. Now, he's one of those people who has the ability to make you see his cards in a different way. From time to time, he sends me pictures of his collection. He tends to leave some of his cards on a table in small stacks, and he'll walk around and just gaze at them from time to time, or he'll just sit at his table and thumb through them. And there'll be cards like a 68 Topps Roger Maris, a 62 Topps football card of John Brody, or a 68 Topps card of popular Mets first baseman Ed Kranepool. And he even sprinkles in some 1966 Topps cards of the Caped Crusader Batman. Now, on that table, there are just so many memories, the joys of childhood collecting, and the moments that surround these cards. He would tell me about warm summer mornings spent at the beach and then coming home to a frozen lasagna for lunch that his mom would heat up for him, and he'd put on the Yankees game on the radio and just get lost in the afternoon. These cards, they're just little portals to those moments. I think that's what some people miss when they say, I've seen this card many times before. And I think it's pretty sad, to me anyway, that people are sometimes that short sighted. Because instead of worrying about that this card is so rare or that card's, just scarce or whatever you want to call it, to me, the cards that are commonly seen are the ones that we have the shared experiences with and the ones that we connect with most. There are just so many collectors who make me feel good about this hobby and collecting. I'll see a seemingly common card in someone else's collection, and suddenly it's more than just another run of the mill edition. It has life, it has weight, there's meaning there. When that person shares the history of the card, why it matters to them, or even how it came to be in their hands, that's when it truly resonates to me. That's when it goes from being just a card to a symbol of something bigger, whether it's a memory, a moment in history, or a personal milestone. I just feel this connection to it through that person. I have many cards that resonate with me in this way. I cannot look at this 1979 Topps Thurman Munson and not think about my first ever baseball memory. I was sitting on my porch playing with my plastic army men with my brother and his friend when my mom opened the door and said that Thurman Munson had died in a plane crash. And when you're 4 years old, It may not understand everything about the world, but I knew about baseball and its importance to my dad and my older brother. I liked the Yankees because of them, and Thurman Munson was a name I knew, a face I had seen on television, and a card my brother had in his collection. It was my first experience with death, and though I didn't fully understand it, I felt sad. I don't remember exactly what I did after that. I probably just went on playing with my toys again, but it obviously stayed with me, and it's reflected in this card. Now, I picked up this card next to it a few weeks ago, the 1982 Topps Danny White. And I remember the first time I ever saw this card. For whatever reason, I didn't open packs of football cards in 1982, but I did buy this whole set in 1988. Now, I've talked about before that there was this man who lived over on 79th Street in Niagara Falls, and he had a card business out of his house, and he would sometimes have weekend sales in his garage. Now, I remember going over and buying the entire 1982 Topps football card set for something like $30. That was quite a bit of money back in that day, but I had a paper route, and I was a real big spender. And I couldn't wait to bring this set home. And I was sitting on my kitchen table, thumbing through all the cards, and I came across this Danny White card. Now, along with Tony Dorsett, White was my favorite player. And there he is, wearing this awful blue Cowboys jersey. I hated the blue jerseys. Now, the Cowboys wore royal blue until 1980. And after the Cowboys lost to the Eagles in the NFL championship, they changed the color to navy blue. I don't think that was the reason, but it happened at that time. And you can see here, White is wearing that navy blue jersey. And these were the first Topps cards that feature them in the darker blue. Now, since the team's inception in 1960, the Cowboys wore white at home, and it was a tradition started by general manager Tex Schramm. Schramm had believed that fans wanted to see the colorful uniforms of visiting teams on display. Now, here I have two cards from the 1965 Philadelphia set that capture the Cowboys in their iconic whites. You have the team card, and then also a card of offensive tackle Tony Licio. I hope I pronounced that correctly. These cards were gifted to me by Gary, who goes by the YouTube handle Golden Slumber, and I absolutely love them. Thank you, Gary, for sending these to me. Now, as you probably know, most teams wear their colored uniforms at home, so the Cowboys often wore white on the road as well. But a few teams like the Redskins, of course now the Commanders, the Eagles, and the Cardinals would force them into their blue jerseys. Now, legend has it that the blue jerseys became to have bad luck associated with them because the Cowboys lost to the Browns in the 1968 playoffs and then again in the 1971 Super Bowl. Now, that's somewhat disputed, but I've read differing accounts anyway. Now, the curse of the Blues, it just stuck with me, though, as a kid. I just, for whatever reason, never liked them. And especially after seeing the Cowboys lose to the Eagles in the 1980 NFC Championship, and then they lost to the Redskins in the 82 Championship, the Cowboys seem to fare better in the whites. Now, I know they lost to the 49ers, but they won their Super Bowls wearing the white jerseys. And even though they're recently been faring better in the blue jerseys, I think they've gone 9-2 in their last 11 games wearing them, I still can't stand them to this day. And I know my friend Chris at Stories of Cardboard feels the same way because he grew up a Cowboys fan, and we talk about that. And it just reminds me of that superstition. Last week, I picked up these three 1977 Topps football cards. Now, I have several cards from this set already, and I've done a video on it a while back. But I continue to add players that give me those nostalgic feelings. The 1977 Topps football set it felt vintage to me as a kid. Somehow I came across some 1978 Topps football cards, and I did open packs of 1979, but I never had any from 1977. But my older brother had plenty of them. I remember thumbing through his cards and falling in love with the design and the photography. As you can see here on the left, it's my favorite card of Colts running back Lydell Mitchell. Now, he was one of the best backs of his era, and in 1977, Mitchell not only rushed for 1,159 yards, but he also led the NFL in receptions for the second time in his career with 71 catches. It's a feat that I believe no other running back has matched. And what's interesting is from 1973 to 1979, running backs led the NFL in receptions every single year. It's pretty amazing, and it's something that I don't think you're ever going to see again. Now, Mitchell played from 1972 to 1980. He made 3 Pro Bowls, and he earned a second-team All-Pro selection on 2 occasions. And he finished his career with over 9,700 total yards. Now, he's not quite a Hall of Famer, but I think he was one of the best running backs for sure in his era. Now, next to him, you have Drew Pearson. And Pearson is a real interesting guy. He wasn't a Hall of Famer up until only a few years ago. He was an all NFL wide receiver of the 1970s. And in 1977, he led the NFL in receiving yards with only 870. Now, there were 14-game seasons back then, but even with that, no other receiver had 1,000 yards that year, which tells you really how the game has changed since they updated the rules to give more benefit to wide receivers and quarterbacks, and it was at the detriment of defensive backs, and you can certainly see how that has changed the game going forward. And I wanted to add this card to my collection because I have the receiving leader from that year, and then next to him, of course, is the receptions leader from that season. And then next to him, you can see the 77 Topps card of Joe Ferguson. Now, Ferguson was the Bills quarterback that I grew up watching. He led the NFL in passing yards that season with 2,803, but he threw just 12 touchdowns and had a league-high 24 interceptions. Despite that, Ferguson was a very solid quarterback. I remember my first Bills game in 1984 against the Dallas Cowboys, and Ferguson was still their starter, and the Bills were 0-11 at that time. Now, the Cowboys came in with a 7-4 record. Danny White had been benched in favor of Gary Hogeboom, but White was still handling the punting duties. And wouldn't you know it, the Cowboys were wearing their blue jerseys. On that day, Greg Bell for the Bills, he was a running back, he broke off an 85-yard run on the very first play from scrimmage, and the Cowboys ended up losing 14-3. The blue curse was alive and well. The Bills finished the season 2-14, and the Cowboys, despite a 10-6 record, missed the playoffs. Ah, the memories. So the next time you're showing a card to someone, remember, it's not just about the stats, the condition, or the value. It's about the story that you're telling and how you're inviting them into that story. That's what makes the difference. It's how we share pieces of ourselves through the things that we love, and how that connection resonates with others in a way that we just can't always anticipate. Because in the end, it's not just about what we collect, it's about why we collect and how we share that with the people around us. Everyone have a great weekend. Until the next time, take care.